No! No! Don't shoot! This is a nightmare. I need to get out of here.
Vampyr is an action RPG that puts you in the shoes of newly turned vampire Dr. Jonathan Reed, who has just returned to a flu-riddled London from the battlefields of World War I. Throughout your entire campaign, you are faced with story-changing choices between humanity and giving into your vampiric hunger. Vampyr is out now on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 for $59.99, and you can even pick it up on PC through Steam for $49.99. The first thing you will notice within Vampyr is the graphics. Although London looks good at a distance, up-close details are underwhelming and unfortunately stay mediocre throughout the game. During cutscenes and conversations, the character design can often have NPCs staring off into space with sometimes odd facial expressions. Lip synchronization is also off and can take some time to get used to. That being said, the atmosphere of Old London feels very genuine, and the cluttered streets of London not having the freshest graphics is forgotten within an hour or so. Vampyr's main story is inviting, but not the only objective. You must also balance your time between keeping several small communities healthy, side objectives that pop up from time to time, looking for crafting materials, all with a fair amount of combat mixed in. The individual community's health can be seen through the menu display, and if the community's health drops below a certain point, the community can become hostile. Key members of the community can even die if the area becomes hostile, resulting in lost parts of the story. You can also check individual members' health and their unlocked background stories through this menu. NPCs can sometimes suffer from sicknesses as well, which can all be cured by crafting medicine, but must be administered by you. Every community hub has a crafting station close by, and materials are fairly common and easy to find, but finding the correct NPC and administering their needed medicine can be time-consuming. Crafting is not only limited to medication, you can upgrade weapons and create self-used meds within these crafting stations. Each rank up on weapon also allows you to choose between two added abilities, which has a noticeable effect on combat. And the self-used meds are mainly just combat boosters that you can use in a pinch. Along with weapons, you can unlock up to 19 different Vampyr skills. With 8 active, 8 passive, and 3 ultimates, you are able to personalize your skill set. You can only have 4 active abilities and 1 ultimate active at a time, not including passives, but they can be changed out at any given time once they are unlocked. Each ability can be ranked up several times, but the cost for higher ranks goes up as well. Vampyr's combat is fun. The amount of customization with weapons as well as vampiric abilities allows you to approach every situation differently. Enemies can also have resistances to certain types of attacks and require you to switch abilities and weapons before even engaging. Vampyr has a unique way of tying story progression and the leveling system together, allowing the player's choices to directly affect the story. Every non-hostile NPC is worth a certain amount of experience, depending on their blood quality, which can be seen through Vampyr vision or during conversations. Your victim's blood quality can change depending on how much of their background story you know, their current health, and importance to the community. If you are planning on draining a specific person, it is well worth learning their background and curing any of their sicknesses, but once you have drained that individual, you will lose any specific quest or task they might have had to offer in the future. The main story in Vampyr does a good job of grabbing you and forcing you to play somewhere between a good doctor and a fanged monster of the night, all having unique consequences. If you choose to save everyone as the player, you are weaker and you miss out on a lot of experience, but you have a much more involved story, which will provide more story and task-based experience. But if you choose to play as a vampire, you can rank up your abilities much faster, but your experience is not near as in-depth. Of course, Vampyr is not without its flaws, with every NPC having a huge amount of conversation options, and talking to this person just to unlock conversations for that person can make conversations a bit much at times, often making you skip over dialogue options because you just started to zone out. The camera and lock-on system during combat can also be an issue. You can switch between locked-on targets without knowing it due to the indication blending in during combat. And if an enemy is in between you and your target, you still only focus your target, and you have to scramble to switch to the correct target. When you are fighting multiple enemies at once, the two systems together can make situations worse due to poor camo placement and switching targets at random sometimes. There are also a handful of things you must learn for yourself without a real guide. For example, buying all the abilities is kind of a waste of time because you can only use 4 at once, and it will put you behind on damage compared to some of the enemies that you face. Vampyr does a great job of making the choices feel natural, and you do not feel pressured into playing a specific way, which not a lot of other free choice games have mastered that aspect. With a compelling story, fun combat, and the choice to play how you want, Vampyr receives an 8 out of 10, with dated graphics and sometimes awkward camera system being its biggest downfalls. Although conversations can get a little long, Vampyr does a great job of putting the choice of conversation into the player's hands flawlessly. If you are looking for a compelling story-driven game with fun combat and the choice to control every NPC's lifespan, Vampyr is the game for you.